Hey, hello, everybody. You have arrived at Halo, Love, and Country with Richard Gayton. That's me. I'm a psychologist, writer, filmmaker. And Mitch McDonald, actor, writer, filmmaker, chaser of children in the hall in the educational establishment.
It's a small
Um,
school. I don't have to chase them far.
that's good. That helps. Um, so, Halo, Love, and Country has been about LGBTQ people taking risks in the military and risks just being themselves. And there's a particular risk that is not talked about a lot, but it's the risk of conversion therapy, the risk of the culture, the family, the school, the church, trying to change someone's sexual orientation. And Mitch is going to fill us in a little bit about something called gender dysphoria. You want to go for that?
I don't know. I was sort of hoping the professional would carry that one, but gender dysphoria, really at its heart, is simply being caught in a physical state that doesn't match your mental state. Uh, the the reasons for it go a lot deeper than just the concept of being transgender. There are many layers to it, and they don't necessarily require you. They don't really require you to be looking to change your body to the next sex over. And sometimes it's just a question of uh, coming to terms with the body that you have, which is the
Which
dysphoria,
is which
the
it's
body you perceive and the body you have not matching. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, gender dysphoria is closely related to transgender issues,
Mm-hmm.
and it's versus being just. I'm trying to remember the American Psychological Association came out many years ago with a term for it, where you're comfortable with your sexual orientation or you're not, where it's completely unacceptable to you. And the APA recommended treatment for people who felt very ashamed or very frightened about or very depressed about their sexual orientation, not necessarily whether they were male or female or whether that was comfortable with um, their actual physiology.
Right.
So they're different issues, but they tend to get treated with the same kind of oppression within the culture and within the religious community, some religious communities. So there's a close relationship, but they're different kinds of problems. But let's talk about dysphoria first of all, and that's the problem where your son when he's 11 or 12 says that he really feels like a girl inside, or your daughter comes to you and says, um, I want to wear boys' clothes, and I'm most comfortable. And they won't say it like this. They'll have very masculine interests, perhaps, or what we consider masculine, because our culture has rather rigid rules of what is masculine and feminine. And where things get really confusing is that you can be a very, very masculine man, quotes, traditionally masculine, like trucks, cars, football, roughhousing with other boys, and be quite gay. So that's a whole nother issue. his traditional roles, which can be very confining and very difficult to navigate if you're a young person coming up in our particular culture. And this is not true of all cultures, but it's true of American culture for sure, and most American culture. So, Mitch, what are your thoughts? What are, in your research and experience, what are you coming up with regarding gender dysphoria?
Well, my concern today wasn't really the mechanics of gender dysphoria. Is really I've been paying more attention to the social side of it, uh, primarily because we've got it's the Supreme Court has this case coming, has a case that they actually just heard a couple of days ago regarding whether or not you can do gender therapy, excuse me, not gender therapy, conversion therapy, whether or not and who can perform conversion therapy, um, which just bleeds into gender dysphoria issues.
Mhm.
If you do not feel that you are in the right frame and you're acting as if you are in one that others cannot see, we then step into that realm where we want to adjust you so that your inside matches your outside rather than your outside matching your inside, because that's something we tend to be more easily comfortable with. Um, Making the things we can see match the things we know that they should be based on what we can see. Um, uh, the idea that, because so what apparently we've been working under uh, since the mid 2000s, the early teens. We've been working under laws that basically said if you are a medical professional, the medical profession does not feel it is acceptable to try to force someone's mind to match a body it is not comfortable in. Uh, so conversion therapy has sort of fallen not so much by the wayside; it's just been left to unlicensed professionals who, whether or not they've got an education. If they are working under a licensure, they are not permitted to go this route. But that, of course, then leaves the clergy and just random folks who walk around feeling like they know how to adjust other people's minds to take up that task. Um, and the problem there being that very few people are going to them because they want to. They're going to them because they're being forced by whatever social format they live in, whether it's their parents or their church, or just trying to fit in where they don't feel like they do, which that's not necessarily being forced, but as we know, it still can be.
Well, the American Psychological Association has been pretty clear on this, that this is an unethical practice for a mental health professional, and many people won't care what they say. People that don't care about science or psychology or whatever. But clearly, uh, this is considered child abuse when it's done with children. It's a coercive practice that involves shaming, guilting, and to the extremes, sometimes electroshock, ice, heat, a kind of aversive conditioning to try to change the sexual orientation or the sexual expression of a child or other adults also.
Yeah.
The,
So
the
torture.
estimate is that it's a kind of it's a way to um, try to enforce your particular view of sex roles or traditional sex roles onto a child. And this is spectacularly damaging. It leads at times, and it has led to particularly the children too now, of adolescents attempting suicide. There's a very high rate of suicide among adolescents, and it's particularly aggravated by parents and these people that are doing conversion therapy on children. They're very vulnerable to it, and frequently they want to change. They want to fit into their families, they want to fit into their churches, into their communities, because they don't want to see the hatred coming towards them that is going towards many other LGBTQ people. And we can see the damage all around us if you just to talk to some of the kids that have been through this. And if you want to just see if some of our viewers want to get more of a kind of a gut feeling for what it's like, watch the movie Boy Erased, or there's one about, I think it's called, something, Cameron Post is another movie. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. The one I've seen is Jesus Camp, which is this is a place where kids are sent by pastors and parents. Usually this is coming from religious people who see their children's sexual orientation, or maybe budding sexual orientation, as a sin or an abomination. And these kids, all kinds of things happen to them at these camps. Most of it is kind of mind training to see all the reasons why they should be ashamed of who they are and how they can change into somebody they're not. And it can go on for days, or if there's a novel, I think it's a little bit extreme, but it's called Surrender Your Sons. And in this one, this is fiction now. So the mother sends the son, arranges for him to be kidnapped by these two men who come and handcuff him and take him off to Costa Rica, where he's put in a camp situation where it looks like many kids have been there for months on end until they show the right behavior and the right mindset. And it usually has a lot of religious symbols, a lot of religious practices to show them that they should change their sexual orientation. In 18 states, this is considered child abuse. But if you take your child out of state and have them taken to one of these camps, it's perfectly allowed, because these are not professionals doing it.
Right.
And if there's a suicide attempt or a child is damaged, nobody knows. Which is maybe a step up from, what frequently was happening, which is underage boys and girls were being battered in their homes, beaten, or just simply abandoned on the street. So I guess they've still got food and water at these camps, and they're still ostensibly getting some kind of a care, but they're not on the street and they haven't been beaten up by anybody. Although frequently that has been happening in addition to the conversion therapy. The families have tried everything else. So this is kind of a horror show for children and for adults, and it usually affects them for the rest of their lives. They try to be, if they really want to be loved by their families, and what child doesn't, they try their very best to fit in. They'll change the way they dress. They'll change the way they hold their bodies. They'll change what they say about the same and opposite sex. They'll just try not to talk anymore about who they are inside. In other words, they can become, it depends on how good they are at it. They try to become another person. They just try to change and put on a veneer. And that veneer is what can lead to suicide attempts, running away. And I watched a movie last night, very interesting. It was actually an 8-part series on Netflix called Boots. And this was about a teenage boy who ran away from his home, and he was gay, and was gay in the film. Ran away from home to join the Marine Corps. Without his mother's knowledge, he just leaves to do it. And you see what he goes through. And this is not to indict the Marine Corps, but the Marine Corps can be a very hyper masculine, traditional masculine place.
Yes.
And so you see him run into that and what happens and how he tries to change himself. And then you see his drill instructor turns out, I don't want to give too much of the film away because it's really well done. The drill instructor seems to have similar issues, but to be, 15 years more into it and what's happened to him because, he's the drill instructor is this extreme version of the perfect Marine, He's learned how to become the perfect Marine, and it's nearly destroyed him emotionally in the process. It's really well done. So you can kind of see what happens to people in fiction, but this is happening in real time. 600, how many did I say? 650,000 adults, 350,000 children and adolescents. So it's a huge thing. And
I'm sorry. What I was just going to say. So, like the thing that it's been a couple of years since I last had to look at the numbers on issues with gender dysphoria and conversion therapy. Our population and within the LGBTQ community. Some of it I carry in my head, and some of it I go back to from time to time. And for this discussion, I went back specifically looking at harm numbers, as part of what you were saying. We're doing this with an intention of bringing people forward, finding them some parity in their life, a comfortable place. Sometimes that involves a physical change, and sometimes it does not. And with this Supreme Court case, obviously the argument of the plaintiff is that they should be able to care for people in this way that they see fit, and the government is impeding their ability to do that with these laws. And I expected the benefits of gender affirming care and general care where dysphoria is concerned, to be very obviously productive, gainful. And what I'm really seeing in the numbers is that in a lot of ways, the active science side of it is bad science. It is poorly tracked, questionably performed, and it leaves us in a very anecdotal state. We can all say we know people who have been aided by their gender affirming care. We can all say we know people who, maybe not all, but I guess I'm talking between you and I, can say we know people who have received therapy for gender dysphoria who are better now than they were before. But then the other side can say the same thing. I know someone who got gender affirming care and they hated it and wish they had never done it. And I know someone who went in for body dysphoria where they basically forced them to be gay. Uh, Oddly, that group never says we forced them to be straight, but you know, um, they don't see the null on their side, and we don't necessarily see the null on our side. Um, Although it's not like, again, they don't study their choices. It's all very anecdotal. In our side, the studies are coming off from my mind very weak, which is just incredibly surprising, but I guess it shouldn't be. It's not like we live in a time, particularly now, especially over the last decade, where we are retracting from allowing people to be who they are so that they can make those open expressions, so we can track those open expressions and see the good and the bad because it's now publicly available. We're all here for it. um as I said, I listened to the Supreme Court case, and right now I'm pulling a blank on the names of the various attorneys that were involved in the case. Um,
Well, aren't they claiming that their free speech is being, we're talking about the laws from Colorado, the
yes,
law
thank
from
you, from Colorado.
Colorado that,
Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
law from Colorado that has banned conversion therapy.
right,
I think we're talking.
right, and effectively, their argument is that the law is impeding them, even though no one's actually gone after them with the law. They're it's a preemptive strike on their part. Their position is that, as you just said, it stops them from doing what they want to do. And on the other side, they're saying the law needs to stay in place because it only impacts licensed individuals who are controlled by a completely different body that the law is designed to support, in terms of, the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, and their decisions about how professional therapists need to act and perform. Um, and their position is that they can't talk about what they need to talk about with their clients, where again, and on the defense, they're basically saying, because you're not a licensed individual, you can talk to anybody about anything you want, as long as you don't do them harm and there's no suit, then we don't have a say in it. It's professionals that they are trying to monitor. That's the argument, um, on either side, as best I can tell it. um,
Well, there's two kind of somewhat separate issues. One is whether gender affirming care for transgender people is effective and safe. And I don't know if that's been studied very much. I think you're saying the research is very weak, and I wouldn't be surprised because it's so new that we're openly discussing this, and we're providing support widely in the culture now. Not totally, but it's much wider. It used to be just a hush hush sort of thing. You
mhm.
go have your surgery, and there was one clinic, and seems like it was somewhere in the Midwest. There was one doctor, and he did it. It was done in Bangkok, and that was, if you wanted to go to Thailand, you did that. But now it's become much more mainstream. So it's time to do good studies on that. And then there would be the difficulty. Well, what is gender affirming care? I don't know anybody that's in, making people even try this. It's available for people that feel like, and usually they need to go through some kind of counseling. They're talking to their doctor. And they're usually older. It's very, very rare there's any kind of surgery on a child. It's very, very rare for kids that are at least not in their later teens for this to ever be done. So
Right, right. And
it's
I would
like,
say, and okay, so you're saying that it is rare, and I will say that for the people that I so often have to have this discussion with, they will say that it is not rare, that it is an extremely common event that children are pushed into um, puberty blockers, gender affirming therapies, other gender affirming cares that actively begin altering their bodies, extremely mastectomies that are effectively like barely within the range of puberty. um, um,
well, let's stick with the data. Okay. If we're going to believe data, no, it's extremely rare. If we're going to believe what people say, people can say anything they want. And it's a free country. They can make all kinds of arguments, but it's usually based on religious animus. It's based on um, fears that 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 gender affirming care is all over the country with thousands of children. They're being for this is all. There's no evidence of this whatsoever. None. Zero. But people are still saying it. They have the right to say that if they want to. But I don't remember the data, but it's a very small number of particularly young children, and those are mostly children that are actually born intersex, that have actually sex organs from both sexes, and and there's such a small number. I don't think we even. They're probably going to be studied now, though. There's going to be a lot of studies of it now. Um, but if we're,
well,
I think what they're reacting to is that there's a huge number of people, sometimes adolescents, sometimes, well, and young children have always said, we've had boys that have wanted to dress in girls' clothes, trying to find their own way. We don't know if they're transgendered or not. Sometimes they're shamed. Usually, if parents understand how children are, they go, "Oh, you want to try on mommy's dress? Well, it's a little too big for you, but oh well, that's cute." And we do all kinds of things around gender when we're young that really don't mean anything. They're just children trying on different roles, and who cares, But now it's become loaded into this big worry about it, um, and kids are talking about it in school. They're not being shamed as much in some states. I mean, do we really want to shame children because they try on their mother's dress, or the girl wants to wear jeans and a t-shirt, and um, I don't know, and lift
well,
weights? Do we care?
I would argue,
Why do we care about this?
not argue, actually, I wouldn't argue. I would again say, if I'm having this conversation with the people that I have to have this conversation with, one of
Yeah.
the things they're going to say is something along the lines of basically, if one child is hurt, that's one child too many. It was a process that didn't have to happen. It's effectively it's a forced error.
Well, sure.
And on that
Show
same
that to
front,
me. Show me the data. Show me that one case where it actually happened. Document it for me so I know what you're talking about. And if
well,
it's really is forced, there should be some action about it. Then that's an issue of child abuse. How often is that
yes,
happening?
yeah, and I would point I would and have pointed out the same thing, that if that was happening, where were the parents when that decision was being made? That goes off into a whole other realm of education in the United States, reading skills, uh, objective
Willful
knowledge.
ignorance.
Yes, general ignorance. But
Wilf,
again,
willful
following that,
ignorance.
what willful
Willful ignorance.
will.
People who want to stay ignorant.
And you would also have people, you would also see that part of the argument that says, like, as you were saying, show me the data. There are people who are going to say, The medical community has been wrong before, will be wrong again, and that they are wrong on this
Sure,
issue. That
they could
there was
be.
a time. There was a time. What was that? I guess it would. I'm not sure when in the 80s it was that we moved. Uh, Actually, no, that wasn't in the 80s. Was that the 90s or the early 2000s that we moved homosexuality out of the DSM as a condition, as a mental failing? And then the biggest one that I remember from school was the Buck v. Bell, where um, oh God, I'm trying. I can't even remember exactly which one of our Supreme Court justices it was, but he basically made the argument that eugenics, forced sterilization was acceptable because of the three generations of imbeciles is enough. I forget exactly which one of our
Yeah,
Supreme Court justices
yeah,
it was who said that, but they upheld a position carried by at that time the medical community. And some of the
absolutely.
people that I'm having this argument with would be saying that they would be saying that the medical community has been wrong, will be wrong again, and this is just a case of the courts correcting. Although then the obvious point there is that if the courts are wrong the first time and they're correcting now, or the medical establishment was wrong the first time and they're correcting now, the point is that there be a correction, and this is not necessarily that correction.
Well, show me the data again. We can do all kinds of analyzing and all kinds. Show me the harm. Show me the child that has been forced to have a sex change operation. Show me the child who has been where the physician has advised this is absolutely necessary and has put pressure on the parents to do it, and where the child is traumatized. Just present that is as data rather than as it's really kind of
Okay.
just
Yeah.
talk.
Well, yes, yes,
You know,
yes, yes. But I think you can present those. You can't present those cases. You can present those individuals who say it happened
sure.
to them. And if those individuals are
Yes.
already all you are looking at, then of course the number seems quite large. If I go online, how many people am I going to find who have gone through gender reassignment who really want to be out here talking about it? It was back in the several years ago now, and I'm not even going to try to remember the time frame. There was a long gap where I was constantly talking to people who were basically saying it isn't my job, and this was over racial issues. It wasn't my job to educate you. It's not my job to teach you how my life is. This is my life. If you want to understand it, you go somewhere and you fucking understand it. You go figure it out. The point of that being simply that for me, some being that you're going to allow them to continue to be ignorant. They're coming to you for answers. You're refusing to give them because of comfort level or whatever. Um, which is a completely different thing for somebody who's had gender reassignment, for instance, simply because they're in many cases trying to stay under the radar. They already have enough issues with passing to put themselves in the position of being a test case, a study, a teacher, where they have to live in the constant reminder that I'm not what you want me to be. I'm not what you think you see when you look at me. I am more than this and I'm less than that, and I'm just a person, and I'm trying to be me, and you're trying to constantly say that I'm someone else. Remind me of a life that I was able to transcend, overcome.
Yeah.
Not
And
everyone is.
well, we have those people who feel like they're trying to become more of who they really are. And then I have no doubt there are some people who have tried to do that, who made that decision for whatever reason, and it didn't help them, or they wish they hadn't done it. I believe that certainly happens and has happened to people. Um, but is that because they were forced to do it? Is that was because somebody told them that it was absolutely required for their medical health? Was it, did somebody use financial pressure or the pressure of being a parent. Can you picture a parent pressuring a child to have a sex change operation? I guess it's possible. Any freaking thing is possible. Is it likely? No. But I believe that's happened to some people. I believe this is all possible. I believe this is mostly an issue in other people's minds. And I just think going through the process of feeling like you're the wrong gender, or you're being dressed as a different gender, or you're somebody that's not you, that's traumatic in and of itself. It affects that person. And I don't know if for some people, if they ever get through it, ever get over it, no matter what they do. And they can have all kinds of emotional issues and traumas that are somewhat related, but not totally related, that aren't fixed, that aren't repaired by taking hormones or having breasts removed or having the genitals changed. We have a friend. My husband and I have a friend who is high up in the medical system. I won't say where. Who has changed from a boy into a girl, from a man into a woman, and it has not. But she is beautiful now. She's an amazing looking woman now, and she's had it all. She's had it all done. And is she totally happy now? No. She still has a lot of issues, but they don't have primarily to do with whether she's internally feels like a female when she's wearing men's clothing, or when she's forced to act like a man. It's not that anymore. It's other things. So humans are very complex, and it's the individual people have different responses. And gender dysphoria may be 30% of their issues, while another 20-30% is alcohol abuse or some kind of real psychiatric illness like major depression, which could be related to gender dysphoria. I guess what I'm saying is, I suspect we need studies. We do need studies, and they'll be done now that that we have so many people talking about it. And the people that they're feeling like they've been harmed, they should be studied, and they should get together a group of people who've been through that, and they should reveal it. You just hope they're not people who have been shamed into this by the same forces that are causing them to get the surgery or the hormone blockers in the first place. The folks who are saying that God doesn't love them, or that Jesus wants them to act more masculine, or whatever. That they have to wear, my God, the right kind of underwear or whatever. That this kind of thing that is just that is so damaging to people. I mean, we just know that from doing psychotherapy with people that
Yes.
We know that. We know how damaging that can be. And can't we just can't we really follow the words of Jesus rather than what his church, I don't know if it's even his church, but what a church would say, love people exactly the way they are, and for whatever they're going to go through. We stand by them. It's kind of interesting to watch Cartman now. Jesus has returned to Cartman. Have you seen this? And he, in some ways, feels like the real Jesus to me. He's not there spouting how people have to shape up and fly right. He's, he's showing compassion towards people, although certainly gets impatient with them. It's an interesting thing to watch. But if we can accept a transgender person who's trying to struggle to find out if some kind of surgery will help them, because they may make a decision that, I'm gonna have my breast removed, and they may regret it afterwards. Well, humans are known to make bad decisions. I mean, from what I know,
Right.
of
That's the part of it that, and as you said, over time we're going to get those studies done. That is the part that frustrates me, is that data isn't there. We can't say how many people go through gender affirming care, or just just the very narrow edge of it, or they go they go to the more extreme changes to meet their own needs. We don't have solid data on how many in either path are regretful of the decision that they made. I think the number that I saw was something like there is a 5% suicide rate among people that, like, this is one of those studies that was just like, okay, those numbers can't possibly be right necessarily, but it was like there was a 5% rate of suicide among people who needed gender affirming care and didn't get it, and a 9% rate among people who needed it but had regrets about the outcome. It's one of those, well, I don't know how many people, how many people are you saying this study equates to? How many of them did you study versus how many of them are actually out there? Because obviously they tell you how many folks they talk to, but they can't show you how many people we don't know are in this category. How many kids commit suicide because they say, I feel out of sync with my friends, everybody hates me, and it's coming from a place of gender dysphoria that they haven't exposed yet, but they know they don't fit in with the people around them. And of the people that say they committed suicide, or harm themselves after the therapy, because we don't know the number of the first one, we can't necessarily say how far off is this number. In terms of, like, how many were harmed versus how many lives did we save? And then that goes back to the question of, is even one life too many, which is silly, but they go back to it every time, and if 9% means 100 people who have had gender affirming care step back to a place where they harm themselves, okay, well, that still leaves you 100,000 that didn't. And is 1% a good number?
Well, one of those assumptions when you get a number like that is that the gender affirming care caused the suicide. It may have nothing to do with that. It's there could be many factors. Just raise a child who doesn't act the right way, doesn't want to dress consistent with what people have agreed upon is the correct sexual orientation or sex role. Just raise them for 10. Just raise them in 10 years in that environment, in a religious environment, home environment, school environment. Just do that to them, and that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives. And it may permanently give one child depression that they're never going to get over, except maybe, who knows, they may never, even with therapy or other things. It may cause another child to try to take their lives. But just expose somebody that young to that kind of shaming and blaming and coercion and all that. And a certain number of vulnerable children are just going to be ruined by that. And it's that we know. We just know that. So now, is our intervention effective by offering a surgery? I mean, usually it's going to be a surgery in late adolescence or adulthood. It's usually not with children. Is it we're going to use hormone blockers? I don't know. It's like, if I'm a parent, just going back, I'm going to try to do whatever I can to help that child feel loved. Period. Full stop. What am I going to do? That's my job. Help them feel loved and accepted in this crazy world. You know, try not to expose them to stuff that's going to hurt them. You know, and I don't know. I guess you know the parents get together with the doctor, with the child, everyone's evaluated. I assume people are of goodwill are trying to decide what's the best thing, and that child will have a say in it. And the older they are, the more say they'll have, I guess. So, are we doing sex change operations on 5-year-olds? I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt there's been one in the United States, unless they have a vagina and a penis at the same time, or somehow
we make
they're
the mistake of trying to make the decision for the child at an age far earlier than they can make that decision themselves. You know, we'd rather have that little mess down there cleaned up rather than wait until they're 13, 14, 15 and know which part of that is truest to them, or maybe it's still both parts. You know, maybe they are 100% in sync. Yeah, but we make that decision very early for some children.
And I think very rarely. I think if we look
Probably,
at the data,
probably more rarely now than, say, when I was a kid, 1960, 1970, 1950. You know, I'm sure without having the data in front of me, I'm sure we make that decision far less often now.
yeah, it's so that's what I think. What we want is gender affirming parents. You know, we want a gender affirming church. We want a gender affirming mental health establishment.
Right.
People that affirm people. You know?
Well, that is also part of the argument that, again, that's part of the pushback is exactly at what point are you supposed to be affirming, you know, because a little boy wants to wear his mother's shoes. Should we be encouraging that? Should we be allowing him to think more and more toward the idea that he is more like his mother than his father, that he would rather be wearing dresses, not because they feel good, but because he's actually mommy, not daddy. And at some point he's going to start wishing he had boobs like mommy and a vagina like mommy rather than, you know, the penis that he has. And at what point is that basically encouraging him to act in a way that's just going to lead him down a road of homosexuality? You know,
that one. Yeah, well, so just try and stop a 5-year-old from thinking something. You can certainly spank him if you want to, if he wears a dress, but just make him just get in there and change his mind. Psychologists can't do it. Religious people can't do it.
Well, I think the argument here is that they can. You know, that would be the entire point of exploration therapy, is changing your mind. You know, and it's the thing they accuse people on your side of doing, of creating this mindset that you should be correcting instead.
Okay, let's take the example of a child, and I used to work with children a lot and families. We have a child that hates school. Okay, that's their mindset. I hate arithmetic. I hate reading, but I like recess.
I think I know that kid.
You know that one? Okay, just try to change his mind about that. You can ask him maybe what would make it a little bit easier for him. You can ask him, to go what'll make him easier to go to math, because maybe math is really hard for him, or maybe he has a reading problem, or maybe he just doesn't want to do it all. He'd rather be at recess. And then you can reason with him and try to find a way of teaching that helps him. You can offer him all kinds of incentives to change his mind, and some disincentives for not. But usually we're trying to change his behavior. So yeah, you can hate math, but you got to go. Yeah, you can not be able to read very well, but you've got to show up for your reading teacher. Yes, you can love. We know you love recess, and you didn't read the 2 pages you were supposed to read. Well, we can withhold recess while you read those 2 pages. That doesn't necessarily change his mind.
No.
It doesn't change his mind. It changes his behavior, which is usually enough to get him through school if he can change his behavior. But if you tell him what a rotten, no good kid he is for not liking reading, good luck. That'll change. What that'll do is tell him that some people don't like him very much, and that something's wrong with him and bad about him. And is that really helpful? What does that do? I mean, do you want him to try to take that in and try to change his mind about himself and turn himself into something negative? Do we really want that? We can try. Maybe that works. I don't know. I guess we see kids can feel horrible about themselves. And did we change their minds? I don't know. We encourage them to think that way. But can we get them to change their hormones with their minds? Okay, they say, I really like dolls, which I did, by the way. I like dolls a lot. I liked stuffed
Big fan of dolls.
And you can tell them they shouldn't, and it's wrong and it's bad, because little boys shouldn't like stuffed animals. But you can see who's really at fault here. So my mother, my aunt, my grandparents gave their little boy stuffed animals, and I had a bunch of them, and I felt loved in that family. And I knew who I was when I was very young. I knew, but I also had a religious upbringing that said all that was wrong. It's we really want, from a psychologist's point of view, we want our children to grow up loved and accepted, and to have a safe home for them. That's what we want. And then we do our best to educate them, and we do our best to get them to, be productive and not steal, and don't bash people, and try not to sexualize your neighbor without their consent. We try to do all those things, and we're very frequently successful at it. They don't, but changing their minds, we're not really good at that. I mean, my bias is the best chance you have of changing someone's mind is by loving them. And it teaches them to go back to accepting themselves exactly the way they are. And that helps erase the crazy thinking they develop from being socialized. Children don't grow up hating themselves. They grow up quite accepting of themselves. They come to this world that way, and then it depends on how we raise them. So I would tend to want to accept people with gender dysphoria, the way they see themselves and the way they are in the moment, even though that may change. And if their decision, particularly as an adult or an older teen that's gone through a lot of counseling and been able to look at all the options and seems competent, I'm going to probably support their decision to do what they think is best, but also subject to what their parents are comfortable with too. Because the parents are ultimately responsible for our children until they're 18. So, and all that could be that person could be making a big mistake. They could choose something like a hormone block. I think it'd be very unusual to have a surgery with a teenager. Very unusual. It happens, but if I saw the numbers, it'd be a small number of people. Now, the number of kids that are saying, hey, I'm non-binary or I'm transgendered or something is huge. It may be a huge number, a lot more than that. But that's not a decision for your entire life. That's a decision you said. That's something you said in English class when you were 17 years old or 16 or 15 or what you say, that doesn't change everything. It's just where you are now. So I'm going to encourage the world to relax. Just calm down around our transgendered brothers and sisters and whatever name they want to be called. If we could just relax around it all. But of course, that's really hard because we've got opinions, you know. Well, we're coming towards the end of our hour here. Any final comments, Mitch? Have you been stopped?
Stalked?
Stopped. Did the conversation stop you somewhere?
No, that last bit was very thoughtful. So I'm sorry, you sort of sent me off into a bit of a reverie, I guess. While you were talking, I was secondarily looking around a little bit, and it looks like the number is it's actually a fraction of 1% of gender affirming surgeries are performed on kids between 15 and 17. And that is usually breast reduction is what I'm looking at here. So yeah, the number is beyond small.
Yeah, it's for boys. It's for boys that for hormonal reasons have developed breasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not even really the same thing. That's putting a big
it's gender affirming care. I'm a male, so I don't want. Yeah, I don't have boobs.
Right, but it's not transgender affirming care, which is the pocket that when you hear the term, that's immediately the pocket you think of. But that's actually not the only category. Which good to know. I'd never even thought about it like that.
Yeah, it does. That you could say less than 1%. Well, you could say that's a lot of transgender people suddenly having surgeries as 16-year-olds or something. But of course, it's not. It's doing a breast reduction because the boy is tired of, and he may be, and then there's a whole nother question. If obesity is very prominent in America now, and so boys develop breasts because of obesity. They develop it for hormonal reasons, whatever. Is that a good surgery for someone? I don't know. I have no idea. But you know what? I don't want to interfere with what that parent's doing unless they're making that 16-year-old have surgery. obviously, with that less than 1%, the parents are talking to the child is talking to the doctor, they're all talking together. And there's a really damn good reason that most of them are doing this. And is it the right choice? Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, as you said, we are coming to the end of our hour.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hey, catch my book, Love and Country. Okay, it's a novel. It tells the backstory of the characters. Although we didn't do Mitch's backstory of the first sergeant, he's not in
First
there.
sergeant is nowhere near important enough in that story. Handsome as he was.
Yeah, right. Okay, watch Mitch's performance in the movie Love and Country, and you will then disagree with him. It's a very powerful performance. Some of the best acting done in the movie. And you can catch Love and Country at Tubi and Amazon and YouTube and other places. And come back and visit us again. We appreciate your comments. Please like us and subscribe to us because we appreciate you guys watching and listening. So see you next time.
See you next time. All right. So for the moment, that is where I'm not gonna shut us off just yet.
Let it run. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna let it run for just a minute to give it some buffer on where it cuts us off. Hopefully our listener may slide in here with an attaboy or a question or something we can address next time, but it looks like they're going to remain quiet. So humble viewers.